If someone asked me a few months ago whether a piece of furniture could ruin a family, I would have laughed. I believed mirrors were just objects, glass, reflection, nothing more. But that was before I inherited an antique mirror from my grandmother. A mirror that didn't always reflect what stood in front of it. A mirror that revealed a truth my family tried desperately to bury. The story began when my grandmother passed away. I was devastated. She was the one person who made me feel special in a family that treated me like a spare part. After her funeral, we gathered at her house for the reading of her will. To everyone's surprise, she left the largest share of money, jewelry, and property to my father and uncle. But when it came to me, she left only one item: a mirror. My mother was embarrassed. "Just a mirror? Really?" she whispered. My uncle snickered, and my father gave me that familiar look, like I was a disappointment. But there was a note taped behind the frame, in my grandmother's handwriting, "For when you need to understand." At the time, I didn't know what that meant. The mirror was huge, tall, framed with old carved wood, slightly tarnished but elegant. It looked ancient, like something from a castle or a museum. I placed it in my bedroom, leaning it against the wall. From the start, I felt something strange when I looked into it. My reflection always seemed slightly delayed, like the glass took a moment to catch up, but I figured the old glass just warped the image a bit. Then one night, everything changed. It was late, around 2 a.m. I had dozed off watching a movie when a sound woke me. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. My bedroom door was shut. I looked around, confused. Then I saw movement in the mirror. My reflection was standing behind me. But I hadn't moved. It stared forward, motionless, while I slowly turned to check behind me. Nothing was there. When I looked back at the mirror, everything was normal again. My reflection aligned with me. I blamed exhaustion and went to sleep, telling myself the mind plays tricks. But the following night, it got worse. I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. Suddenly, the reflection of my bedroom behind me changed. The walls were peeling. The furniture was missing. It looked like an abandoned, burned-out room. Nothing like my clean and tidy space. My reflection dropped the hairbrush, but I was still holding it. That's when my reflection turned its head slowly to the right, toward the corner of the room, and its eyes widened with fear. My blood ran cold. I forced myself to turn and look. Again, nothing there. When I faced the mirror again, everything returned to normal. Same bedroom, same reflection. I tried to convince myself it was stress, but soon, the mirror showed more than just odd visuals. It showed people. A week later, while I was getting dressed, the reflection changed again. A woman appeared behind me. Her hair was long and dark, her dress dated, like something from the early 1900s. She stared at me through the mirror, but there was no one there when I turned. She reached out in the reflection, toward me, and mouthed something. I stepped back in terror, and the image faded instantly. I covered the mirror with a sheet and left it like that for days. But ignoring it didn't help. Shadows moved beneath the sheet. I kept hearing whispers whenever I walked past it, words I couldn't quite make out. Finally, I called my mom, explaining everything I'd seen. She went silent. When I asked her to come look, she refused instantly and said, "That mirror should have been destroyed years ago." That sentence changed everything. I demanded answers, but she just told me to bring the mirror to the basement and leave it covered. She was terrified, her voice shaking, like the mirror was something alive. I stacked heavy boxes in front of it and tried to forget it existed. But that night, the boxes fell over. I woke to the crash. The sheet was gone from the mirror, lying all the way across the room. My reflection smiled at me. I wasn't smiling. I screamed. It vanished. The next morning, furious and scared, I brought the mirror back upstairs and confronted my dad. He brushed me off like always, claiming I was being dramatic. So I went to the one person who would have answers, my uncle. He was the oldest child and closest to my grandmother. Maybe he knew the mirror's history. He did. When I showed him the mirror, his entire expression changed. Panic, guilt, fear. He told me the mirror once belonged to my great-grandmother, Eleanor. He said she lost her mind, staring into it. She claimed the mirror showed the truth, not what people wanted others to see, but who they really were inside. She used to say the mirror was a doorway, and once something passed through, it stayed. My great-grandmother spent her final years locked in an asylum, screaming that the mirror had taken her children. The family thought she was insane. Now I wasn't sure. I realized then. My grandmother left me the mirror on purpose. She wanted me to find the truth, whatever it was. I spent days researching the history of that mirror. It was made in 1910 by a craftsman rumored to practice occult rituals. The mirror wasn't sold in stores. It was given to wealthy families who believed in spiritualism. There were stories of reflections with their own intentions, families tearing themselves apart after owning it, even disappearances linked to households where the mirror hung. Then, while digging through an old box of family records in the attic, I found a hidden envelope labeled, "For the last who sees." Inside was a photograph, my great-grandmother Eleanor standing beside the mirror, holding a newborn. Written on the back, "His secret will be seen by the next generation." I frowned. Whose secret? I found a second photograph, this one of my grandmother as a teenager with the mirror. Behind her, in the reflection, stood a ghostly silhouette of a woman holding that same baby. The real background had no one there. And then, a third photo. My father. About the same age I am now, standing in front of the mirror. His reflection was gone. Just an empty room reflected behind him. My heart started racing. I confronted him again, this time refusing to leave without answers. He lost his temper but eventually cracked. He told me the truth. My father wasn't my biological father. He admitted that my mother had an affair with his own brother, my uncle. My uncle was my real father. My grandmother found out and swore never to let the secret tear the family apart. But she knew the mirror would expose it eventually. That's why she locked it away. Everything made sense now. The reason my father always resented me, the reason my uncle always treated me with unusual affection, the reason my grandmother left me the mirror. The mirror didn't show ghosts. It showed truths people hide. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again, this time ready. My reflection stared back, calm. Then the scene behind me changed. I saw my uncle holding me as a baby. I saw my father screaming at my mother. I saw my grandmother crying as she locked the mirror away in the attic. The mirror wasn't haunting me. It was helping me see what the family refused to say. Then the silhouette of the woman appeared again. The ghost from before. She wasn't frightening this time. She looked relieved. She whispered one final sentence that sent chills through my entire body. "Now the family is free." The mirror returned to normal. No more whispers. No more figures. No more strange reflections. It was as if the truth finally broke whatever curse held on to us. I told my uncle I knew everything. He cried, not ashamed, but relieved after decades of silence. My father and I are still distant, but now, at least I know why. I kept the mirror. But now, when I look into it, I no longer see delayed reflections or haunted visions. I see myself. Just myself. The truth it revealed was painful, but it was necessary. Secrets rot families from the inside, and my grandmother gave me the one thing strong enough to expose ours. A reminder that reflections don't lie. People do. So if you ever find an antique mirror in your attic, maybe think twice before you stand in front of it. Because you might see more than your own reflection. You might see the story your family tried to bury, and once the mirror shows you the truth, there's no unseeing it.